Welcome. I'm super happy to be here with Revelator as well. And I don't know if you know Revelator, but if you do know Revelator, you probably know them as this company that works way in the background of everything, right? They're never the shiny thing at the front. And they've been like quietly building blockchain-based technology solutions for the music industry since around 2017. In the meantime, they also do a lot of regular Web2, in quotation marks, stuff, right? And we're kind of at the precipice of like, where are we going to go with blockchain and crypto and music? And that's sort of what this whole sort of workshop today is going to be about. And it's also the arc that you're going to find throughout. But what we see when we push blockchain into the infrastructure layer is that there's a lot of opportunities there around certain things that we would love to see in the music industry, like micro licensing or micro payments, like DeFi lending, right? Another way to find money up front for the record that you want to produce. So there's all these things that we can do and that we want. And of course, there's also other ways of going to find those things, but there's also blockchain-based solutions for that. Right, I got carried away. I have to also introduce myself, of course. I'm Maarten. If you know me, you probably know me because I write a newsletter called Music X about music tech and innovation, which goes out weekly. If you don't know it, subscribe before you leave the room. It's on Substack. I wear many different hats. So by show of hands, since we've been doing that for the past 10 minutes anyway, who's into classical music? Oh, a few of you. Wonderful. Well, I'm also co-CEO of a platform called Symphony.live. It's a video streaming platform for classical music where I aim to unite the world's orchestras in their digital transformations. I also teach at the Utrecht University. I worked with Watra Music on collaborative research and their academies, and now I also do things with Revelator Labs. I'm going to go and kick us off in a minute. And I'll put my old history hat on, because I did history. And I'll give a history lesson of music and Web3. Why am I going to do that? Because I want to create a shared context for all of us in this room as we move forward, right? Followed by that, I'll get Rebecca Starry from Revelator, Mike Pollard from Nina Protocol, and are now on the stage to discuss some of the systematic issues that we see in the music industry. In the between, Arnaud is also going to introduce Revelator Labs. And then at the end, we're going to tokenize one of Portrait XO's tracks. Rania, she's right here. And her and Kalam are going to come on stage. And Kalam, also a wearer of many different hats, but here mostly then as a part of the Sound Obsessed Collective, to discuss what this means. And this is especially concerning the importance of that self-custody of rights. All right, this history thing. I've got it in a couple of acts. I'm going to talk to you about the Internet and Decentralisation, something you probably know, but I'm going to remind you of. Blockchains and music, crypto and culture, and then I'm going to talk about you. So, let's remember the Internet. This is my friend. I don't actually know him. But this is how the Internet sort of started. Well, the Internet started, of course, with ARPANET, and closed circuit systems, and then we got bulletin boards, and we had the dial-up phones to kind of post stuff on there. We're all too young to remember most of the time here. But in the mid-1990s, with Yahoo and GeoCities, there came a new way to explore the Internet, right? You didn't have to put in 92.100.88, but you could just click and point towards websites. This is the magic of the hyperlink, right? It also meant that people like this guy could just write websites, build websites, and shout into the void of the world about whatever took his fancy, like the fact that he has a website. It's linear communication, it's static pages, and I cannot stress enough that in the mid-1990s, the hyperlink was just as magical and strange and weird as an NFT was in 2021, okay? From the Web 1, which was fairly decentralized, but which became centralized through websites like Yahoo, which also opened up the space. We came into what often referred to as Web2, so platformization. Instead of owning your own website, you create a profile on a website and you start talking to each other. It's all about the centralization of data and, of course, social media, like MySpace. So for any takers in the room, who is Lizzie Grant? Very, very famous artist. It is Lana Del Rey. Thank you very much. Yeah. Very few people know that she actually did a MySpace on her own, and it doesn't exist anymore on the website or on the internet. Another thing that we need to understand the current moment is piracy. So the role of piracy in the development of the internet and the development of blockchains and in the development of the music industry is super profound, as we all know, right? So in the original Napster, which is the image on the left there was a central index and everybody's computer connected to that, yeah? This is also why it was slow. This is why, if your download didn't work right away, you had to start again because you were downloading from one source. Yeah, after Napster, this was developed when we saw this with the Pirate Bay and especially with BitTorrent. And it became a distributed download system. Yeah? So everybody in the room here had Metallica's One on their computer, and I was trying to download it, right? And his computer gave me 0.5% of the file, and your computer gave me 1.5%, and Mike's computer was super fast, so I got like 3.4% from him. But if his computer would go down, I would just get the rest from his computer. Yeah? That's the decentralized network in play. And everybody was connecting to this hash instead of that central computer index that we saw with Napster. And the hash is this cryptographic hash. We could talk more about it afterwards if you're really interested. That BitTorrent peer-to-peer network is the basis of the Bitcoin blockchain. So Bitcoin launched in 2008. In the middle of a big financial crisis, everybody hated financial institutions. We all thought we were going to die. We needed something else. So Bitcoin launches this alternative store of value. Lots of other cool experiments were happening in the early years of Bitcoin when nobody was really talking about it, except if you maybe had somebody who's weirdly interested in it and you suddenly, your yoga teacher would go like, hey, you can pay in Bitcoin if you want. And you go like, what? I have no idea. And then in the mid-2010s, we got Ethereum. And the thing with Ethereum was that it wanted to be the world's supercomputer, right? So a totally decentralized computer around the world, connecting thousands among thousands of nodes, and everything is distributed. Knowledge, files, apps, everything. The crazy innovation here was the smart contract, so we could transact with each other on the blockchain, yeah? All right. So, sorry, let's talk about music. So even in the early years of Bitcoin, people were like doing crazy experiments with music and putting it on the Bitcoin blockchain. People like Rare Skrilla, Lethal Skills were among these people who were doing this way back when. I'm going to start this little part with Ethereum and DJ Pepe. So we all know Pepe because it's a meme, and this kind of was part of the start of this meme. So this is by Rare Skrilla. He created 136 tokens, right? So this whole part is about tokenization. So we tokenize stuff on the internet for various reasons. And what did you get if you bought or traded one of the 136 tokens of DJ Pepe? Is you got access to a playlist, right? That was it. You just got access to a playlist made by Rare Skrilla. The super dark image at the top right is Imogen Heap's Tiny Human project. And this is still the basis for a lot of the things that I find super interesting about music and crypto, music on the blockchain. So what she's trying to do is to create this model for shared ownership. She was working with Ujo Music, which was a failed experiment because they were thinking way too big for a time that wasn't possible yet. But it was about creating this model of shared ownership and creating the connections between artists and fans and between fans as they were trading and giving away the token that was connected to it. The bottom image on the right is Jonathan Mann. Don't know if anybody knows him, but he did a song every day about a current topic. It's brilliant. He was very big on YouTube. And he did, in the middle of the ICO craze, so the initial coin offering craze, which happened because we developed the ERC20 token that allowed for all of this stuff, he did an initial song offering, right? Which basically showed us that you can bootstrap, you can find a different way of funding your artistic project, yeah? So we have the three elements that we keep seeing coming back. Access to something, connections and shared ownership, and bootstrapping of funds for an artistic project. Then we got NFTs. So the ERC721 token, for those who enjoy that sort of language, was developed, and this led to a whole new, different way of music on the blockchain. The crazy little artistic image on the left is crypto jingles. I don't know if anybody ever had or knows what a crypto jingle is, but they were the first kind of experiment. So on the back of Crypto Kitties, which was basically a game, they created crypto jingles, which was also a game, right? So everybody was playing around with these little stems, creating songs, minting them as an NFT on the Ethereum blockchain, and then trading them. They were on IPFS, so the decentralized storage system, but not really, because they were later unpinned, and are now only available in this Ethereum wrapper. Too much technical stuff, sorry. So then we have Joe Chiappetta, who made his Rare Digital Rock. If you don't know Joe Chiappetta, he's a crazy artist, did a lot of digital cool stuff, also a lot on the blockchain, and he made a 17-second song that he minted on the blockchain, which was the first one that was pinned to IPFS forever and ever, immutably. And then I just have two artist names. So I have Blau and Latasha. Blau was already experimenting very early on. He also worked with Ujo Music, and he stands for something that sits very close to the speculative element and the financialization that we find with crypto, right? And of course, we know him mostly in NFT world because he sold his UV collection for an extortionate amount of money when he launched it in March 2021. He then founded Royal, which started out as this way of finding royalties attached to music on streaming services and paying that out to NFT holders. Their model didn't really work. It's now something else. And then there's Latasha, and Latasha stands for me for culture, right? So Latasha made the first music video, which she minted on Zora. It's the first music video on chain. She is fantastic. And one of the things that she sort of stands for is that this revaluation of music, right? It's like, hey, I demand and I say how much my music is worth, right? So if my music is worth $80 for me, it's worth $80. But if I made a music and a video and I think it's a total work of art and I think it should make $20,000, then, you know, then that's what it's going to be on the market for. So then we went into a lot of experimentation. Things really kicked off. We were in a bull market. Everybody was happy. Everybody thought this crypto stuff is going to go up forever, et cetera, et cetera. So at the top left, we see Songcamp, which was an experiment in sort of working together on the blockchain, right? So we're going to reimagine what it's like to make music together, to create together, and to then distribute that music together. We also saw lots of platforms popping up. Nina, of course. Audius is another example that people probably know. And I've got two here. At the top right, you see Verity's first release on Catalog. And Catalog was a website that said, hey, we're going to do limited edition digital pressings, right? So we're going to lean into vinyl culture. We're going to create these rare one-of-one items that are super special. And it worked. And this allowed people to do what Latasha wanted, yeah? And then we have Sound, and Sound was like, nah, we need editions. We need some sort of community thing happening. So we need comments, and we need, you know, kind of the platform things that we're used to attached to all of this stuff. Okay. So in crypto, culture plays a really big role, and the dominant culture also plays a very important role. So in the beginning, cypherpunk culture was super important for the launch of Bitcoin, for early years of Ethereum as well. I've got a quote from Eric Hughes from his Cypherpunk manifesto in 1993. So we, the cypherpunks, are dedicated to building anonymous systems. We are defending our privacy with cryptography, with anonymous mail forwarding, with digital signatures, and with electronic money. Yeah? There's a strong libertarian streak here, but the whole open source infrastructure thing is really, really big. And the libertarian streak comes in because they don't want to exert influence on how any of this is used outside of what's written in the code by the cypherpunk. And it continues to be a very important part of crypto culture, but I've noticed in the last couple of years that newcomers are usually not very aware of it. Okay. Quite early on in Ethereum and throughout the bull market that existed through the DeFi craze and the NFT hype, regen culture became quite big. And this is all about governance experiments like the DAO project that Sonar also explored here last year. But it's about sort of what can existing institutions be reimagined as. Yeah? Strong focus on public goods. And Paul Dillon Ellis, the Ethereum researcher who recently published a book on all of this, which you should probably read, says regens are usually focused on financial applications and more drawn to the idea of building a new decentralized web, which is sometimes called Web3. So these people are the ones that drove the idea of Web3 as this next iteration of the internet, which then went back to the early days of decentralized internet. And the last big regen play, and I'm kind of afraid it's also the last one, period, was the retroactive art funding from Optimism earlier this year. Now, Optimism still stands for this culture, but I don't know if they have the power to do that again. Okay. The final bit of culture are the degens, degenerates. So this is largely driven by speculation. They drove the ICO craze, they drove DeFi summer, they drove the NFT hype, and they most recently drove the whole meme coin mayhem, if you allow me to call it that. So degens have always been around, and then one way of thinking about them in a sort of semi-positive sense is that they're like the logical endpoint of venture capital culture. So Paul Dillon Ellis again. Degens are financial nihilists who focus on current trends and hype to strike it lucky and escape the rat race of contemporary neoliberal capitalism. Degens will often take extraordinary risks, but in an ironic, almost detached way. And this is currently the dominant culture, the most visible culture that we have in crypto. It's not pleasant for the rest of the world, I can tell you that. Because people see FTX and think, I don't want anything to do with that. So this brings us to you, everyone here. I see two paths of optimism forward. Yeah? Number one is that we can indeed create new music economies around artists, using tokenization, using the tools that the blockchain offers us to create things like micropayments, funding of projects, etc., etc. Another possible way forward of optimism is that all of this does indeed disappear into the background. That we don't care that something is an NFT, we just care that there's a direct payment from me to the artist that I like. We care that there is direct splits between all of these people. We care that if I use a stem, it's licensed. Yeah? That is what we hope.